The police came to my front door. Animal control came twice. It's the fact that I just randomly decided to film this video. I was gonna film this video years ago, actually, but let me see how long ago this started. This was back from 2019, you guys. Whew, as you guys can see by the title, today's video is gonna be a story time, and this story time is long overdue. I have been wanting to tell you guys about this for so long because this neighbor of mine was the worst. I don't wanna say I despised her because I've did a lot of growing. I've done a lot of meditation, centering myself, research. I've read a lot of different books, but this lady, ooh, she was a handful. She was definitely the definition of a Karen. I want to look it up. I want to look up on Urban Dictionary what Karen actually is, because I feel like she would fit the description so perfectly. Karen. I'm so silly for looking it up, but I just need to know. A Karen, a woman typically blonde. I don't think she was blonde. Makes solutions to others' problem and inconvenience to her, although she isn't even remotely affected. Ooh, she definitely made my life her problem, and she tried to find solutions for different things in my life. At the time, I was living in Las Vegas in the Spring Valley area. This woman, we're gonna call her Karen because I could use her name, but I'm gonna call her Karen. She was awful. At the time of this whole thing transpiring, I lived in a 3-bedroom with my boyfriend, and we had 2 roommates. They lived with us for about a year and a half. And when Karen first moved in, because we had lived there, whenever Karen moved in, my boyfriend and I had already lived in this house. It's like a duplex or whatever you call it. You know how there's a house when you share a wall with your neighbor? Well, there's that. And then typically those houses, the doors are like literally right next to your other neighbor on the opposite side. So literally Karen moved in next door. So imagine this. Maybe I'll insert a picture of the unit. I don't know. But my front door is here. Karen's front door is here. There's not a large gap of space between privacy. But when Karen moved in, Karen was cool. I didn't even know she was a Karen when she moved in. I greeted her when she moved in. Nice to meet you, etc. Like, I would be outside sometimes washing my car. She would make little small talk with me. She didn't really have a lot of visitors come over. But like I said, everything between Karen and I as a neighbor was completely fine up until around, I think it was 2019, but a specific thing happened, and that's when I noticed that she changed. You know how there's some Karens that are okay with black people as long as they don't act black, or they have not experienced them acting black? Overall, whatever, and I'm doing, let's say, act black, whatever that means, because I have this thing where I just know for a fact that there's certain white people that are okay with you as long as you are proper. If you ever act different or come off any different than being proper, now you're a threat. Now they don't like you. Now there's a problem. So it was around Valentine's Day, and I was setting up something because I was surprising my boyfriend for the first time. I had never done anything like this, but I was surprising him, and I had came home one day with a bunch of stuff that I wanted to sneak into the house, but he decides to come outside and try to help me, and I insisted on him. I was like, I don't need any help. It's fine. Just stay inside. And he was just like, okay. I go inside and I open my window so I can put everything. And the reason I'm telling you this, and I'm gonna get to a point, but I have not locked it, but I closed that door so I can secretly put my stuff in that room without him seeing. So I open the window so I can just put everything through the window. I should have just waited to put everything in the house, honestly, when he wasn't home. But anyways, I wanted to get everything in the house, put it away. But Karen was outside, and my boyfriend, he ended up walking back outside. Wow, this light feels really bright. Even though I insisted on telling him to stay in the house and I didn't need no help, he decided to walk back outside, and I was like, go inside. But I yelled it with such force in my voice, and Karen was outside. And I remember when she looked at me and I looked at her, and she like scurried into her house like in a weird way. And I was like, that was interesting. But I could tell her seeing me yell like that made her uncomfortable. And that's when I think everything changed, because after that, communication between me and her, the high and buys, the smiling, it stopped. It got weird. So then I still didn't know that there was a problem until I knew that there was a problem, because I just seen that she was starting to act different, but I didn't think too much of it. So we had went on vacation to go visit my brother in California. And like I said, we lived in Nevada, and my roommate had called us for something. I think it was because the animal control had came to the house to try to verify how many dogs we had. But we always told him to only say that we had 3 because we had 4. And in the state of Nevada, specifically in Las Vegas where we lived, it was against the law to have more than 3 dogs on the premises, but we had 4. So we always told the roommate to tell them that if anybody ever came to the house, tell them we have 3. But he smokes weed, so he forgot, and he told the animal control we had 4. So then we ended up getting a notice that we needed to call them so they can come do a house visit while we were home. But since we weren't home, they just left a little notice. And yeah, so then And that day we ended up rushing back home. When we got home, our mailbox was open. And we got home around 12 o'clock at night because we rushed home at a day that we weren't even gonna leave, just because we wanted to make sure that we crossed our T's, dotted our I's, and make sure everything was okay. But we did end up getting an inspection, and during the inspection, I just took my Chihuahua to somebody else's house, a friend of mine's house. So whenever the people came to check the house, we were good to go. But that's when this note was in our mailbox. Our mailbox was left open. I don't know if she waited till the middle of the night to put it in the mailbox, and she was like, had to scurry back in her house because we got home. I don't know, but our mailbox was just sprawled open, and this note was in it. It said, it had nothing to do with the animals, but it says, I'm not sure if you are aware of this or not, but it is illegal to drive your motorcycle on sidewalks, and you are trespassing when you use my driveway to do so. Kindly only use your driveway. Thank you, neighbor from, she put her address, her street address number. I'm like, okay, I still didn't think nothing of it because I'm like, we didn't use your driveway for nothing. I don't know. My man, he had a motorcycle, so I asked him like, hey baby, did you ever use your motorcycle to drive past Karen's driveway? And he said no. I'm like, okay, but his friend up the street, and I've seen him do it because I've seen him drive right past the sidewalk, like when he gets to the edge, pull up to our house, because he would wait on the sidewalk right in front whenever they would go ride together. So technically it was him, but she's blaming my man. Is it because they're both black? Because you've seen a black man ride a motorcycle past your house? Because let's fast forward a little bit and I'll get to the point of why I said that. His friend had a black motorcycle, all black. My man had a motorcycle that was black and orange. So then a little bit later, like maybe a couple weeks go by, because I'm trying not to give this too much attention, because I'm like, this lady, she is tripping. My man didn't do that. I'm not giving this no energy. So then a few weeks goes by, then we get another note in our mailbox, another letter in our mailbox, which is this one. And this day was just perfect timing. She did this because this day was a day that my friend had came over. We were having some drinks, taking shots, having a great day, but I ended up checking my mail, right? And when I checked my mail, there's another note in there. And I'm like, girl, can you believe, because I had already told her that the lady had left the first letter in my mailbox, right? So I'm like, girl, can you believe there's another? She was like, no way. I'm like, yes, there's another one. I'm like, look. So then I read it to her. She was like, oh my God. So this one says, she dated this one. This one says, August 7th, 2019. Dear neighbor, I am at the point of filing a formal complaint. This has nothing to do with the first note. Of filing a formal complaint regarding the dogs barking through the night. The last few nights, the noise has been a huge disruption to my sleep. I've talked to the police, animal control, and neighbor justice today. And the thing is, she typed these notes up too. So that's what really gets me. I will start the process if you can't be more respectful to those who live around you. Mind you, this lady lives in a neighborhood that is dog friendly. There is multiple dog parks in the neighborhood. There is multiple people with multiple dogs that live in this area. My backyard at the time, I had my 4 dogs. So my dogs were quiet at night. The neighbor's dog that was like right next door to us, that dog would be crying, barking, because the neighbors left the dogs outside. So naturally, if you leaving your dogs outside, they're going to be crying because they want to be inside the house with you. That's messed up. Why would you leave your dogs outside anyways? We never locked our dogs outside. We lived in Vegas. It's too freaking hot for that. And then when it got cold in Vegas, it was too cold for that. We never left our dogs outside. You guys don't know, but I will give you guys some context. I used to be a dog trainer back in Vegas for about 4 years. So my dogs are really well behaved for the most part. Naturally, dogs, they bark here and there, but for the most part, they were pretty well behaved unless there was like a specific noise that they heard that they were barking at, but they didn't just bark for no reason. So yeah, I will start the process if you cannot be respectful to those who live around you. I'd also like to address the issue of the stench coming from your place. The stench coming from my place. I don't want to pass judgment on how you choose to live, but when your mess affects me, I have the right to complain. Exclamation point. Now she yelling. Bitch, you yelling at me. The stench of your trash, animal urine, and feces oozes into my backyard and to my front yard. Please clean up to the point it's not such a disgusting smell for others. I've been informed that I can file a formal complaint regarding these issues as well. Whichever way you like to go forward, either solving these complaints with or without outside assistance is up to you. I just want them to be solved. Thank you for your time, neighbor from blah, blah, blah. Like I said, this day, I was with my friend. I had just finished reading this to my friend. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty tipsy. I went to her front yard and I started knocking on her door because I wanted to read the letter with her, right? And I knew she had a little Ring camera. So I started knocking on the door. I was like, Karen, come outside so we can read this letter together. Yes, I was being crazy, but why are you leaving messages in my mailbox but not talking to me in person when you see me? Is it because the one time you saw me yell at my man? You are an old lady to me. I am gonna be respectful if I speak to you. But now after you doing this, no, it ain't gonna be respectful because now you disrespected me. And at the end of the day, I am grown, so you bothering me, you harassing me at this point. I'm banging on on her door. But my friend, she took it upon herself to go. She opened the screen door of the lady's door so she can knock on the door, like directly knocking on the door. And we knew she was home. We knew for a fact that she was home because there were some packages outside that disappeared. So she came outside to grab her packages, but she didn't answer the door when I was there, right? I'm like, okay. And then, mind you, this situation went on for a while. Like, it wasn't just like a one and done, a 1-2 and done. It started in 2019 and did not end until like 2020-ish or so. But so my friend opened the door and was banging on the door, right? But I was like yelling, I was like cussing, because I was just mad because I'm like, lady, why are you doing all of this? Like, I know I should not have given her all of that energy, but like, you are really harassing me right now. You don't mind your business. There was so many weird situations when it came to her. Like, there was a time where, this is after the fact, right? I was in my kitchen eating a snack, and I have a patio glass, right? And my patio glass faces her backyard. I'm standing in my kitchen eating a snack, and I look up and I see some man who was at her house looking at me. Literally, we locked eyes. And I'm like, what the fuck? Excuse my language, but why is there somebody looking at me from your house? Why are you guys looking into my yard? There was like multiple occasions where I caught her looking in the backyard, and then my boyfriend's sister was living with us for a little while. She saw somebody looking into the backyard from her house. My roommate saw them looking over the backyard. Like, it was just so many different situations. So where it got to the point where I ended up putting a sign on the doggy door section of the patio. I'll insert the picture of it. It says, "Stop looking at/in my home neighbor." I had to put that up. And after that, I honestly didn't see anything else, because imagine how awkward that is if you're a peeping Karen and you see a note that is directed directly towards you in somebody's backyard. You're gonna feel weird, or not, but ill. Like, what is wrong with her? I just hope that she finds peace in this life, because that was a bit much. Like, whoa. And then she even ended up getting a camera in the front yard that was facing my house. Can you believe that? This lady was crazy. Eventually, what she did, she started to make attempts to build a wall, which I was grateful for it. I just wanted it to stay up, because the first wall that she built, I'm gonna post some pictures of these walls because you need to see it. The walls were ridiculous. It was windy at the time when she was trying to do this. She would be putting in a lot of work to do it too. Talking about trespassing, which technically we never trespassed. Even me knocking on her door, that's not trespassing. Her standing in my yard, if you want to get technical, when she was building her gate, her foot was in my yard. I took a picture of that because I was just being petty. But there was just so many situations where it's like, you're having double standards right now. You could trespass in my yard, but you don't want me coming to your door and knocking on your door, or you don't want a black person driving on a motorcycle past your front door because it wasn't my man. So who are you really complaining to? Why don't you walk down the street and put that in somebody else's mailbox and tell them not to drive past your driveway? But still, it's not against the law to drive past somebody's driveway because it's not trespassing. So then we had a situation where the police came to the house, right? Why? What the? Anyways, the police came to my front door, knocked, and they literally asked for me by name. So I'm like, oh, Karen knows my name because she's been all up in my mailbox. She knows my first and last name. Police officer asked for me by name, and he asked me like what happened. And I told him that about her leaving multiple letters in my mailbox. And I had already researched, and I was like, isn't it against the law for her to put mail in my mailbox? He said, actually, yeah, it is. But she had showed him the video of the motorcycle driving past her yard, and it was a black motorcycle. It was not my man's motorcycle. I was like, that's not his motorcycle. His motorcycle is black and orange. The motorcycle was outside, so he saw it. I was like, yeah, that's a guy that lives up the street. And he was just like, oh, okay. But she called the police because she said that my friend was trying to break into her house because she opened the screen door. But the police officer was like, it's technically not against the law for her to open the door. As long as she doesn't step foot in the house, it's not trespassing. And I thought that was so funny because I'm like, you thought you did something, Karen. You really thought you did something. Technically, we did not trespass. We just got to the point where it's getting under your skin because you're getting under our skin. Because my friend was really mad for me. I've been grieving the loss of my mom for years. So it's like, this is still fresh to me. Like, my mom had passed away a couple of years prior to this whole situation starting. I'm like, ma'am, you are literally old, like older than my mama. Leave me alone. Like, girl, what are you doing? Leave me alone. Like, this was so triggering to me because I'm just like, really? Why? Where's your family? Where's your man? Where's your friends? Leave me alone. Like, but the police officer had said that with her, because I had told him about how I had caught somebody looking at me through my backyard, how I've seen her looking over to the backyard. Why are you invading my space looking into my backyard? Like, what's good? Like, what is that going to solve for you? But he had told me that it's not against the law for her to look into my backyard either. And I'm like, damn, okay. So what I ended up having to do was like create shades that you could put in the backyard. That helped block a lot of her being able to see into like my windows and coming into my patio sliding door because it was just so invasive. Like, why are you doing that? I don't do that to you, so why are you doing it to me? So the police officer said that with that type of neighbor, because he explained to me that he had a situation like that before with a neighbor of his, like harassing him because of his German Shepherd that he had. And I'm like, okay. He was like, it's best to not engage, like don't talk to her, like just leave it alone. He was like, at some point, if she keeps trying to call the police, they're gonna stop showing up for her, which that did happen. Like the police only came to my house once, the animal control came twice, and then something called a code enforcer. I have never in my life heard of something called a code enforcer, but they popped up. But it was so funny because the reason why the code enforcers end up coming was because there was this vehicle sitting on my property that was my roommate's vehicle, but the vehicle was inoperable, and that's against the law to have an inoperable vehicle just sitting on the property. It was bothering Karen because it was sitting close to her house, but I had literally just told my roommate, like, hey, y'all need to get rid of this ASAP because I don't want no more problems with this lady. I don't want to risk having to get rid of none of my dogs. Like, y'all need to get rid of this like ASAP. So they ended up getting rid of it. The code enforcers ended up coming over and said that they were coming to check for an unregistered vehicle sitting on the property. And I was just like, oh yeah, the vehicle's already gone. And they were like, oh, we were just coming to check because we got a complaint. I was like, yeah, it was probably from Miss Karen over here. I was like, but her gate keeps falling over into my yard, and it's like a safety hazard because these holes are causing a problem. They keep falling over whenever it's really windy out here. I'm like, isn't this against the law for her to build a wall like this? And he was just like, yeah, she needs to get it approved by the city and build a proper wall if she wants a wall to be there. So eventually we see her outside taking that thing down because I complained on her. So eventually that was taken down, and a few weeks later I see an actual wall getting built, a brick wall. I was so freaking grateful for that. Like, oh my God. Like, I was so happy that a real wall was getting built because now I have privacy. I can spend time in my front yard now, and I don't have to worry about you looking at me because you annoying me, and I'm tired of your face. Like, I could have barbecues in the front yard. Like, I was so happy. Like, I was so much more happy than she probably knew about her building this brick wall. Something that she did was petty though, that she only painted her side of the wall, which it didn't matter because this was a rental property, so I didn't care about this. Like that place that I lived in Vegas, I didn't really like it. Like aesthetically, I didn't really like it. When we first moved into that place, we got it because it was affordable and we needed the space for our dogs. That's really why we moved in there. But before she even built the wall, she was doing some weird stuff because there was a day she was outside in the front yard and she knew that she was already causing problems. And she was outside like this, watering her grass, like, and I did this because I'm like, leave me alone. Like, why are you bothering me? Like, you are weird. You are creepy. Why are you smiling at me? After you causing all this problem, you smiling at me. You are crazy. You are legitimately crazy. So then we ended up getting this thing from the neighborhood justice. It says, dear Ashley, the Clark Justice Court Neighborhood Justice Center, blah, 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 is contacting you about scheduling a mediation to discuss a dispute between you and another property. So this is to have a mediation for us to have a conversation because Karen wasn't able to talk to me in person because she was too afraid to, or whatever her reasoning was. As soon as I seen this, I said, I am not going to no mediation. You are not getting the luxury of me driving downtown to talk to you when you could have talked to me because I've knocked on your door to try to talk to you. But then what I ended up doing because animal control did end up coming to check the yard, and I had took pictures of what the yard looked like when it's not freshly cleaned just so they could see. Because it's like poop is gonna be there sometimes. Like you're not literally underneath your dog's booty while they're pooping to catch it. There's gonna be poop sometimes, but we cleaned up the poop at least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week. The dog's pee, we would like use soap and water and like sometimes even bleach out there to like clean everything down. So for her to say all of that extra stuff, she was dragging it. Like when animal control came to see the house, they were like, okay, everything's fine. Like they would like for us to have a little bit more shade in the backyard because that was before we got the shade to block her from being able to see our backyard. They were like, we would like them to be able to have more shade in the backyard, but because they have access in and out the house with the doggy door, they weren't too concerned. They had fresh, clean water. They had crates. They had everything that they needed to safely live in a household. So they didn't see any problems. They literally walked through, saw everything, said thank you, and left. But yeah, the whole mediation situation, I was not gonna go. I told my man I was not gonna go, but he wanted to try to fix the situation as soon as possible. So he decided to go himself. I said, okay, you can go, but I'm not going. And right away, whenever they sat down, she asked, where's Ashley? I'm not there. And I knew she wanted me to be there. That's why I didn't go. But my man, he's so sweet. That's why he took it upon himself to just go deal with it, get it out the way. But yeah, I didn't go. She asked about me right away. She had said that I was belligerently drunk the day that I knocked on her door. And I was drinking, like I said. And that was funny to me. You just happened to catch me on a day when my friend is at my house and we having a good time. Like, yo bad, get some friends, get a man, something. But so speaking of this situation, my man at the mediation, he was like, you need a man or something. Like, why would he say that? But the mediation, they have to keep getting you guys back on topic, because the main thing, the reason why the mediation was there was to find a solution for the dogs barking at night. But what I did not tell you guys is, because me and the lady had a conversation a few times, I had asked her a question before and she was just like, oh, sorry, I can't hear you. I'm half deaf. So she's half deaf. In one of her ears, she can't hear. If you're half deaf, and I have seen the layout of that house, because me and my man were considering renting it before the lady who owned it decided to sell it. First, she was going to rent it out, and then she just decided to go ahead and sell it, because it was like, things didn't go as planned. So she decided to sell the property, and Karen bought the property. So I know what the layout of the house, the bedrooms are not on the side of the house where she's claiming that the dogs are barking. The bedrooms are on the opposite side of the house, closer to the wall that she shares with her neighbors, because that area that I lived in, it had a bunch of those. I don't know if they're called duplexes or townhouses, but the area that I lived in had a bunch of those, and she lived in one of those too. So yeah. So for her to say that the noise was keeping her up at night, that was not true, because if the dogs were keeping her up at night, they would have been keeping us up at night, and we slept great. But like I said, the area that we lived in had a lot of dogs. So she was just finding things to complain about, because she didn't like dogs. Like, even at the mediation, she was trying to say we don't take our dogs out for walks. She was saying that we don't take good care of our dogs. She was just saying a lot of stuff like that had nothing to do with why they were there. It was simply for the noise complaint. So they had to come to a solution, and the solution was that my man agrees to keep his dogs in the house from 9 p.m. at night to 5 a.m. in the morning, Sunday through Thursday, because she works at a school, so she needed to get up early, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, that lady was such a liar, because it was so many times at night, it'll be like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the lights in her house are still on. Like, she was a liar. She just said what she needed to say to get things to go her way, but things still didn't go her way. And the funny thing, after the mediation, my man had told me she had got a ticket. Most places downtown, in any state, any city, you have to pay for parking downtown. And when she got back to her car, he said that she was like mad, yelling and stuff because she got a ticket. That's what you get, Karen, because why you harassing me? Why you bothering us? Why you talking mess about me? Like, leave me alone. Saying I'm obnoxious, etc. I'm like, this lady is a hot mess. So in the mediation, she was trying to find solutions for the dog. She was saying for us to relocate, to move. We didn't end up moving until two years later. So we wasn't gonna move just for you, because rent was cheap where we was at. That's why we stayed there for so long. But the suggestions was relocation, getting rid of the dogs, vocal cord surgery. So she wanted us to remove our dog's vocal cords so they couldn't bark. Like, ma'am, you are crazy. You are literally out of your mind. I have never experienced anything like that. I have never experienced a Karen. So then time continues to go past. There was a day, I'm sure there's little stuff that still happened, but this is just the deeper context of some of the situations. Like, I hope you guys never have to experience anything like this. But there was one day where my dogs were tripping, like aggressively barking. And one of my dogs, he only acts like that if somebody is doing something that is making him feel like they're trying to break into our yard, into our house, etc. Because he was trained that way, which is great for our protection. So I go in the backyard, right? And I noticed that one of our shades that we had in the backyard, because we had 2 different shades to like have a big enough surface to cover the whole backyard. And one of the shades, it was attached to the brick wall that I share with Karen. And I noticed that the shade was like leaning on one side, like the thing popped off. And I'm like, the way that we set it up there, there's really no way for it to pop off unless somebody physically did it. So then I'm like, I told my man, and he got ready to fix it, and he sees Karen outside. And then my man was getting ready to fix it again. And she was just like, it's gonna break the back wall, or because the brick that it was on, it was a little shaky, but it wasn't enough to make it fall off. But that's what she was saying. And when she said that, because he had told me, he was like, oh, she's outside. When she said that, I was like, no, the real effing problem is that you're an effing racist. Leave us alone. I yelled at her, and he told me she ran in the house. And after that day, I did not hear a word, a peep, nothing, because I yelled at her and I called her out on her shit. No racist wants to be called a racist, because how do you defend that? How do you prove that you're not whenever you keep doing things that is constantly showing that you are? Because you have no real reason to do any of the things that you've been doing, but you're finding a problem. You're constantly finding a problem. Now, I don't know if that one situation where I yelled at my man to go back in the house is what made her, because he didn't even get mad when I yelled at him. He just laughed. He was like, okay, I'm going. But if that one situation is what caused her to not like me or to have a problem with me, or if it was something else, because there was no real reason for her to have a real problem with me. But that just seemed like everything changed when that happened. But yeah, so after that, I did not hear nothing from her. Like there was no animal control complaints, there was no code enforcers, there was no police. Nobody came to bother me again after that. It was done, silent, dead. I seen her outside sometimes, but a lot of times when I would see her, she would scurry in her house. Oh, there was even a day where she was working on the wall before she ended up paying somebody to fix it, where she was working on her wall, and I seen her outside because she used to watch my man. My man had a moving company, right? And she used to watch him and his co-worker pack up the truck to leave. And she did call about that. She did call to complain that we were running a business from the household. But it's like, lady, mind your business. Like, let us try to get our life together. Like, we're compared to her, we were children, but she still was harassing us. But yeah, so where am I at? Oh, so then we ended up getting some new neighbors that moved in across the street. They were really nice. Like, there was a day where I was outside doing my man's hair, and they came over to introduce themselves to us. And then a few months later, the girl who lived there, because it was a couple and a baby, they had came over, and it was like as we were getting ready to move, she had said, she was like, man, the lady had called the police on us. And she went as far as getting the contact information for the ladies or her leasing company to call them to complain that there was an extra person living at the house, because her dad was like temporarily living with them. Because you know, like at the end of the day, we're human beings. Like sometimes people are in financial situations, right? But it wasn't like long enough to where she could have complained anyways. But the lady, because she had that camera that I told you was facing our house, it was facing our house, and she could see the two houses across the street too. But she came to my house. She was crying. She just needed somebody to talk to. So I let her vent to me, and I told her, I was just like, I'm so sorry you're going through that. Like, we went through hell with this lady. Like, she did the most. I'm like, you just got to be mindful. Try your best to like, not get caught, because she was going to be in your business, like for sure. She was a Karen. She literally made your problems her problems and tried to find solutions for them. Like, she literally went down to the leasing agent of this other lady. I'm glad she didn't do that with mine, because that would have been a mess. But she went down to the neighbor's leasing agent, yelling at them, complaining. Like, how is the neighbor across the street bothering you? Oh, you know what it is that started it? They had a company vehicle that had like a long trailer on it attached. They would park it in front of her house sometimes. So it's not even really in front of her house. Like, this lady did not own the street, but anytime anything was blocking her little view outside of her window, she made it a problem. Whew. But yeah, that is my story time of my experience having a Karen as a neighbor. It was absolutely dreadful. If you guys like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you are new, and turn on your post notifications so you guys can know every time I upload a new video. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, you guys.